Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ask the Educator podcast. This is Kevin Anderson, your host, and with me, as usual, Adam Okada. And for this episode, we are kind of giving you a little bit of a teaser of our international webinar that shall be coming out in March. We have Cheron Rojo from our team here, and we are going to get into some fun data in this one. It's only going to be a portion of what you'll find out and learn more about in March on the webinar. So please remember to go to the Healthmark Academy and check that out. Sign up now, save the date, and be there. If you can't be there, check out the recording. But with that being said, we got exciting data that we want to share, and Sharon has discovered this through looking back at some of the stuff that he's collected over the years, and we're really excited to share some preliminary data that's not yet published, but going to be in the near future. So, Sharon, why don't you just share a little bit about what this preliminary study is and kind of just let the audience know what we're talking about today.
Well, Kevin, I'm kind of embarrassed of how I found out about this data. I think we all kind of multitask and try to juggle things, and that's what I was doing at one point. And when I was building a presentation, I thought I had this data and I couldn't find it. And then I kept looking and looking. I'm like, where is it? Well, apparently when I had did my insulation study, the second one that I did, in there, I had also did some other studies within it, knowing that later on I would use it. Well, I forgot I had it. Some of it was published, and this piece wasn't. And this happened to be on light cables.
Ah,
And when I got to this slide, that's when I'm like, where is this data at? So after extracting it, because it was already there, and writing down some of the pieces from it, it ended up being bigger than my other studies. It's actually a 2-year study. And this was 24 to 2025, 2023 to 25. And it consisted of 21 facilities, 8 different states, and it was 21 light cables or light cords. So in this, it was identified that 16 of the 21 had integrity failures, and which came out to a 76 failure rate. That's high. That's a C. I think we have kids in school, right? That's a C.
I
And
think
this
that's
was,
that's
76%, right? Failure rate?
yeah,
76%
yeah,
failed. So that's 25%
correct.
success.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty
So
low. Yeah.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
whew,
which came out to 24%, which you're close, Adam, 24%,
yeah.
good integrity. And this was all determined, by the way, on a 20% um, integrity failure, looking at 20% of the lighting in a cable was bad. So where did that 20% come from? Well, sorry to say, unless someone knows this, there's no articles, there's no studies, there was nothing I can find on 20%. And where did I get the number? I just figured that, hey, if you have 20% of your light gone from a light cable that's supposed to be aiding your light, you're in trouble. I mean, you
Yeah.
can go as far as saying 10% if you want. Shoot, if it's me, it better be less than five. But like I always say, if it's my ex-mother-in-law, then go ahead and put 20. But but yeah, 20 is what I started with. But can you imagine if I would have went lower? I think that percentage would be a lot higher, a lot
Oh,
higher.
yeah. I'm sure. I mean, that is a pretty significant failure rate on light cables. And I think that 20% actually comes from, and I'm not going to say the scope manufacturer. There's a certain scope manufacturer that has in their IFU that it says if 20% or 25% of the light fibers are damaged, then you shouldn't use that cable or that scope. But how do you know where the 20 and 25% threshold is? Like we don't really know where that is, but it's interesting. Like it's funny because we don't really think of light cables as something that can fail. Like I don't remember testing light cables when I was coming up as a tech, and we just sent them up. And I know there were doctors mad because they would send notes down. Hey, my scope didn't work. My light cable doesn't work. All these kind of notes that we'd get angry from the OR. But what do you think is like the contributing factors for why these light cables are failing so often?
I just don't think it was really from looking back now, little bits and pieces of this study that will soon to be study. Hopefully, we can get this going this year. They're just the technicians don't know what they're looking for. That's number one. And when they did know what they were looking for, which we all know the rule of thumb, you take the light cord, you hold it to the light, and you pray to Jesus. That's how you do it. Then, as you're praying, you're looking at these black dots, which are broken light fibers. And these are the old versions of light cables, right? The solid cords. And then they don't have a percentage to go on. So even though they see the black dots or that gray area, they don't know, okay, is this good or bad? Like, oh, it's good to go, I guess. I see something coming through it. So I think it's two pieces. One, they don't know how to test. And two, is there a number or whatever? And back to the statement that you said, Adam, is a really good point about the instructions for use. That number, that 20%, I did find that in an IFU, but for rigid endoscopes, not in cables. So, for an
Okay.
example, this IFU states, I won't tell you who it is, it says use a telescope with more than 25 to 30% defective light guide fibers. But I couldn't find in the ones that I've seen so far. Remember, I'm still working on this study now that I got this data, and I'm going to do some really good research. Maybe I will come across something, but so far I have not seen anything for the light cable, just the scope itself.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing, just point of clarification here, Adam, wasn't your educator Cheron when you were coming up? Oh, just kidding, just
He
kidding, just
was.
kidding.
He was. Yeah.
Just kidding. But actually, it actually, I'm saying that in fun, but the reality is we're always learning new things. And one thing that I remember from my experience is that most people didn't test any of these things, whether it was a rigid endoscope or a light cable, um, mostly because there was a lack of equipment to help them perform the test, but there is some subjectivity around it. To your point, there's
Yeah.
not really guidance in the IFU. There's not really any guidance in the standards because you have to look at specific models too, because you have you mentioned a percentage with the telescope. Well, every light cable probably has different numbers of fibers. Some of them have less, some of them have more. So maybe the impact of 10% of your fibers is actually different based on the model, right? So like maybe one model 10% is not that big of a deal, but 10% on this other model, model B, you can't see anything, so we gotta provide ways for people to do this inspection properly, and hopefully, the IFUs over time will get a little bit more specific about how to test, what to look for, and all of that. So there's a lot of things you can kind of get into when it comes to the IFUs. I'm glad that you mentioned and clarified that the 25% was actually in a telescope one, because I was thinking the exact same thing of what Adam mentioned, and that makes a lot of sense. It wasn't a telescope one, which is funny to even say that word because I think of them as laparoscopes or
Right.
rigid endoscopes or whatever. But yeah, some IFUs do still say telescope. But that being said, um, one of the things that we typically do with a lot of the studies that we do is we check the FDA mod database for any reports and things like that that we find on these devices. And so, Sharon, I'm guessing, obviously, we're still in the preliminary stages, but I'm wondering if maybe you've already looked into the FDA mod database. Have you found anything surprising or that our audience should know about regarding these light cables?
Well, excuse me, correct this. I picked three. There's so many in there on light
Yeah.
cables. Most of it is they're running too hot and
Mm,
burning patients.
yeah.
So I picked three in regards to kind of what we're looking at here. So the three I got, because I'm going to be doing some more here. In 2019, it says the light fiber quality is poor and the fibers are dark,
Mm,
which that's what we're looking at, right? Those dark areas are going to be the broken
yep.
light fibers. In 23, the light source expectedly became disconnected and burned a hole in the drapes. This resulted in a 5 millimeter diameter burn to the patient's left chest. So this goes back to just inspecting them. So beyond what we're talking about here is making sure that the cable is in good condition, that it's connected on both distal and proximal. The last one I found was January of 2025, so that was just last year. A shaver handpiece was reported having once turned on, the end of the cable sparked and the drape caught on fire.
Mm.
Now that surprised me because with insulation testing, we saw a lot of this, right? With cables, but I was actually surprised on this one. But again, this is just a touching the surface. I'm going to be diving a little bit more into this, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to find a lot more because there was already a lot in there. And then a statement you had made earlier, Kevin, I think Adam, about recommendations and standards. You know, the the statements that I found so far were really in for integrity. That applies to a lot of things. And also using any type of inspection method or other inspection methods that you could use for any type of device. So anything that's out there. And I forgot to mention in the beginning that when I did this specific piece of the study or preliminary study, I used a functionality test. So I didn't hold it up to the light and pray to Jesus like we all do. I actually used a functionality test that looks at the light fibers themselves, a light tester. And there were two ways to do it. One, the cables that were solid, it's easy to do because at the end, no matter what end you look at, it's a pie, it's a circle, right? So you can look at it and go, that's more than 20% damage. But when you look at the newer cables, which I call them sparkles, where they're jellyfish or see-through, those sparkles are broken light fibers. So it's a little harder to look at that cable and go, is that 20% of that cable? So it's a little bit harder to see, but you could see it because with this functionality test, it brightens it up. So you can. And what's interesting too, in this piece of it, I was able to see more or less how it was breaking.
Yeah.
So the distal and proximal end were given. They had the sparkles in it because, you're rough with plugging in and taking it off. But if you saw them kind of not randomly, but kind of in a pattern, if you took that cable, wound it up really tight, which you're not supposed to, you can see it's actually at each end or each side of it when they peel pouched it or they wrapped it. That was interesting to see that when I was doing it, that you can see the
Yeah, I mean,
pattern.
I think it's such a like an interesting topic because we don't think about light cables, but if you think about how they're used and where they're being viewed and how the surgeons are using them, if you have broken light fibers and there's not enough light getting into that area of the surgery, that can cause a big problem. Maybe they can't see something they would normally catch. Maybe there's a foreign object that might get left behind because it's dim in a place or there's just not enough light highlighting something. So this is actually a really, really big deal. What do you think like can be done like about this problem? So what should users, if they're listening right now and they say, oh, I've never thought about this, I would love to be testing my cables, how do I do that?
So first thing, well, the piece that I used or the methods in this or tools in it was a light tester or functionality light test. And that is the fastest, easiest way to do it. I know Kevin had brought up in the very beginning that really before this even was a thing, that we just had maybe, if you were lucky, got a big expensive console from the OR from an old tower, and then you had it, but
That's
it was
right.
so friggin' bright, you'd probably give yourself LASIK, right? So, and then even then, you still didn't know, well, okay, so there's broken ones in here. Is it still good or not? So I would say using a functionality test, and you can say 20%, or maybe you just say 10%. I think it's up to a facility to determine that if it's not in the instructions for use. So far, I haven't seen it, but obviously I'll be doing a deeper dive and
Yeah,
seeing
and
if there
what
is anything out
that's a
there.
great point because what I've seen in IFUs is usually it will say to inspect it, inspect it for damage, but they don't give, specifications, but just to give people a little more context around what happens if these are damaged and they make it to the OR. Adam touched on it, but there's a number of things that can happen. One is it can be too dim, and the surgeon doesn't want to go through the hassle of trying to figure out what the problem is. So they just continue the surgery and they have less light available to them. They could miss bleeders, they could miss any sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
possible problem that normally it's all lit up and you actually get a lot of times you get better visualization with laparoscopy than you do with open, believe it or not, as long as the light, the camera, and the scope work properly. But when they don't, and that dimness is there, the doc has a decision to make. They can kind of roll with it and say, all right, maybe we can get it done, but they increase the level of risk, or they stop, and then everyone has to go through this process of troubleshooting. Is it the light cord that's a problem? Is it the scope that's a problem? Is it the camera head that's a problem? And that's why it's really, really important uh, to do as much proactive quality testing, inspection down there in SPD at your assembly station prior to it making to the operating room. I love that you mentioned the towers. We had one briefly, but then all of the stuff went out of obsolete, and then the tower was no longer good. And that's the case most of the time. You don't upgrade the tower in the SPD. You just upgrade the one in the OR. So then it's only good for a few years. But all great content. I love what you're doing. I love that you went back. I love that you even shared that this is data that you were sitting on and missed. I mean, this is
Yeah.
reality. This is what
Yeah.
it's like in a department. You when you're running it, you find out, oh my gosh, I have all this information that's valuable and I could use it over here. That is real world example, and we do it too in education, and I'm so glad that you discovered this and that you're going to put it in writing and share it both in a paper form, in the podcast and the webinar and all that. We want to get this information out. So with that being said, do you have any final thoughts or words to share with the audience before we wrap up?
You know, in final thoughts, I think that go back to your instructions for use for sure. I'm doing that right now, investigating that. And actually, the one that I did find was interesting because it starts off in the first sentence. The expected service life of the cable is 100 reprocessing cycles. And this is a cable that I must have used thousands of times. And I did see a lot of light cables that looked like it needed to like put to rest, which
Yeah.
was way more than 20%.
Hmm.
So I would say go back to your instructions for use and then also ask the question about what kind of testing is out there, and having a functionality light test or a light test tester is a good way to start, and then come up with that percentage and what you think is best practice. Because right now, as far as I know, nothing's in IFU. Recommendations or standards are pretty straightforward of looking, integrity, inspection, but not really a number. And start from there, I
Yeah.
think.
And that's
Excellent.
great advice. I think starting with those IFUs is a really big deal.
Yeah, and with that being said, I just want to remind everybody that this content will be shared again in the international webinar, but with more details and more data. So I highly recommend that you go to healthmarkacademy.com, sign up for that webinar coming up in March. Again, if you happen to miss it or you listen to this podcast and it's already passed, no problem. You can always go back to the Academy and check it out in the past webinar section. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all or hear you all on the next episode.